Welcome to the Government IT Podcast from Converge One Government Solutions, featuring expert discussions around cloud solutions, cybersecurity, modern workplace, enterprise networking, and customer experience for government and civil agencies. And now, here are your hosts.
So thanks for joining me again today, Ryan. I'm really excited to go through the rest of this Zoom Executive Briefing Center tour that we started talking about last time. And last time we were talking about the vast flexibility of the system, the software platform, but also the hardware that's compatible with the system that makes it possible for you to basically convert any space that you have available to suit whatever your meeting or teleconferencing needs are. And at that point in the walkthrough, it was really cool. He was in an open space that was surrounded. I think there was a little bit of a work area over on the side and a hallway behind or a walkway behind. And if you step out of that space, then the audio that's outside of that space is not transmitted as part of the meeting. I thought that was really amazing technology. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've seen that, in practice many times. It's really cool on just the open space concept to be able to have a meeting, in a very large kind of open space that you see people kind of walking by back and forth, but you can never hear them. In personal spaces, even, maybe at a home office, can't hear the dog barking, the doorbell ringing, blocks all that kind of noise out as well. But really what I've seen is the best place for something like that, besides an open space area, is going to be in a boardroom. So you can have now a private meeting kind of in the back that nobody else can hear besides the participants that step into that space. So it's really good for large type of boardrooms. Yeah,
that's a really interesting use case. And then also the display on the side, he demonstrated that with that display as an example, basically any unused display that's in the facility could have a common broadcast happening. So there could be shared playlists or whatever kind of information they want to display on the various displays, and also emergency information, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's a kind of a really cool thing they're doing is they're putting the digital signage in, the emergency maps. Pretty soon they're going to have the map for wherever you're trying to get to for new meeting rooms. So all that's now going to be interactive. All of those types of technologies used to be separate licensing or completely separate hardware aspects. Mm-hmm. And everything's consolidated into one at really no cost. It's just part of the platform.
Skipping ahead a little bit, but he mentioned that in the interactive mapping technology, they're going to start integrating wayfinding so that it sort of, the system knows where you are within the facility and can provide you with contextual or relevant information to help you use whatever's in your current environment.
Yeah, which is really great for those large spaces that have, a lot of cubicles or a lot of meeting rooms. You can think, hospitals just trying to figure a way around, in a campus environment. That's really helpful to easily go through a large scenario and get to your end destination without, having to bother people that are working.
Yeah, and speaking of cubicles, he also demonstrated the capability to use, some of the smaller pieces of technology for hot desk capabilities, and also even had a QR code on the table or on the desk, so that if there's no technology there, the user can at least scan the QR code to claim access to that space.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, prevalent now with all of the hot desking and, working from home, but then kind of coming to the office 2 or 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. Instead of having a dedicated space, you have more of an open shared space that you can, your phone's going to ring, your video conferencing, everything becomes yours as soon as you scan that code.
And then also, I think one of the bigger parts of the demonstration was when he moved into the large open space, which he demoed as an education space. So it was sort of like a lecture hall. There was a presentation area up front, and he demoed that the appliance that was being used, I forget, you could tell me which one it was, I think, but it had a 130-degree viewing angle so that remote viewers would get a full view of the entire space. But then he also had a touch screen for whiteboarding, and he also had the capability of doing a close-up demonstration, of whether it's a piece of technology or whatever needs to be presented to the class.
Yeah, they were using the Neat board, which is, really kind of cool. Right. It's got a really good wide-angle lens on it. It's got the auto framing built in. So it's one of those, pieces of cool equipment, displays that have everything kind of built into it. So it's really low cost to get into something like that. You got the whiteboard capability, which can be passed around to your smartphones, other devices within the room as well. And you hook up multiple cameras to it. So you can either have one that does like a demo, type of space,
Mhm.
or into the main speaker. So if you're back in a boardroom scenario or a lecture hall, you can always have that within, go into the podium, whoever's the speaker from there, and then the other cameras can go into the class space.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that, besides the technology itself, that's so compelling about that part of the demonstration is it's a really great example of how they've simplified the components, the number of components that are necessary, and by doing so, they've given a vast capability but a very low cost compared to what it would have taken to do all of those things in the past.
Well, absolutely. And you can become creative now with how your setup is. And it's not going to be just, I got this one piece of equipment or multiple pieces of equipment. It only does this type of room deployment.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can use that same kind of setup via the platform into multiple different kind of scenarios. So
Yeah.
real easy to kind of just get installed, start using, and then figure out, creative ways to use it a little differently to really have more interaction with the other individuals on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, and I think to your point, that you made at the end of our chat last week, it allows you to convert the space that, any given space to do whatever you needed to do, sort of on the fly, so these spaces become adaptable. They don't necessarily have to be, used for the same thing every time. You could use them for various purposes, on an ongoing basis, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even take it another step farther, but how you would reuse the equipment if you're going to change the spaces. So you're not kind of married, for a long-term idea of this room is now dedicated to this type of teaching environment or this type of boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
All that equipment can be utilized for different scenario setups. So it's a multi-purpose, use of this case.
Yeah, and then I think the last segment of the demonstration, we went into another sort of smaller meeting room. It was kind of like a boardroom, right? And we had the people seated around the table. They were cutouts of movie stars, which is pretty funny. And they demonstrated the auto follow capability and the auto framing capability, and the fact that the device that was in the room is basically cutting it up into multiple streams, so that it sees each person, but also breaks each person into two streams, if I remember correctly, so that it knows the head and the body. And then I think they're going to bring in AI for auto directing in the future. Is that right?
That is correct. So it's really kind of having your own kind of director built into that. So it's almost more like you're professionally, shooting everything in a studio environment with multiple cameras, even though everything's kind of built in right there within the bar.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And one of the points that he made, and I think this is a very important point, is, besides the cost effectiveness that's coming with, all of these innovations, and they're very, for lack of a better word, clever way of sort of bringing all these things together. What they're ultimately doing is creating meeting equity, so that everyone, whether they're local in the space or they're telecommuting or teleconferencing in, has some sense of ownership and participation in the meeting, which is, I think they're pulling off really well.
I mean, they're really trying to get to a point of like teleconference. Maybe 10 years ago, it was called telepresence, where it was just like you were on the other side of a boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
You would see the facial recognitions because it would zoom in on the individuals really tight. It almost like you were there. So they're getting really close to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, previously you were talking a price point of $250,000 to be able to do that. Now you're in that 10 grand, 20 grand range. It's crazy.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really interesting too is we talked about before, the idea that they're trying to make everything almost one button to push, right? And then all of the technologies, not just the Zoom software application, but other pieces of software that are interoperable, such as Microsoft Teams. I think they also said Google Meet is going to be coming in soon, if it's not already. So all the software all of the software platforms and pieces of technology are coming together to create this extremely easy to use platform for people local and people telecommuting or teleconferencing in. And what I thought was remarkable about that is I can't tell you how many times I was in a boardroom at, Fortune 500 companies with like tens or if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, like you mentioned, and they never used it. We never used the technology that was in the room because it was too complicated.
I mean, that just goes back to the platform. The platform's, really good, and they're interoperating with a lot of different, third parties, and, just taking the Microsoft Teams environment. So, people do a lot of Teams meetings, video as well, but it doesn't really give you that, video conferencing solution that Zoom can give you. So it could ride on top of Teams and then provide all of the cool bells and whistles to really kind of get that automated for you with the one, touch join, the following of the video, really good for the boardrooms. So it adds a lot to it, and you don't have to, deploy Zoom everywhere, just on those types of meetings. It's more of an add-on type of feature and functionality for it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more clever aspects to, their roadmap at, what they've been doing and what they're, doing in the future is making it something that they're not sort of in their own lane. It's something that everybody can sort of, plug into and sit on top of, which makes them, ubiquitous in every way, which is, I think, really smart. And also great for the end users, most importantly.
And that's, I think, what it's about. They really try to focus on the end user and what it's going to look like, instead of just the back end equipment and, licensing, things of that nature. So the ease of use, I think, is their number one thing.
Yeah, so that's really amazing. I mean, it's everything they're doing with the platform is just so impressive. And like you said, with the end user in mind, they're really very successful at making an easy to use platform, one button technology, basically, that brings all the components together, software and hardware alike. Is there anything that you wanted to say in closing about the platform or about demos, maybe?
Yeah, if anybody wants to do a demo, contact us. We can get it spun up within 24 hours. We also have access to, cameras, phones. So whatever environment that you're looking to demo, we can, give that to you guys and get that really kind of spun up fast. It's easy to use. It's better to touch it and feel it and demo it live in your environment,
right?
To actually get a good feel.
And how long can customers, demo the technology for?
60 to 90 days is typical.
All right. Excellent. Well, as always, thanks for your time, Ryan. I really enjoyed doing these episodes together with you. And, we'll be back very soon next week to talk about some more government technology, and looking forward to your insights and whatever it is that we want to discuss next time.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Everyone have a great day.